Hi everyone. I hope I'm audible. Okay, so I'm live, right? All right. Hi Yasmin. Good evening. So today we are going to discuss about the tissue, like different tissues, what are there, and the types of tissues. Okay. 1 second. Yes, I am live now. All right. Okay then. All right. So I'll start then. Okay. So before I start, let me introduce myself. I am Vani Kari, biology educator at Unacademy. I am an engineer with bachelor's and master's degree in biotechnology and a B.Ed degree. Also a founder of a startup where I grow microgreens by vertical farming technology. So let me just check once. Yes. Okay. Alright, so join with us in Telegram. So for homework and class notes, you can join the channel Vani Kari ICSE Class 10 Biology. Okay. And the Telegram channel of Unacademy, ICSE and ISE both. So you can find this link in the description and you can click on the link to join the channel. Okay. So we conduct special classes on Unacademy platform where you can learn from your favorite educator for free. So these are special classes which are absolutely free. Okay. Also you can engage with educators via polls, so we can conduct a quiz there, so you can take up a quiz, and once it is done we will be sharing the leaderboard so that you can know your ranks as well. Then clear your doubts in the live special class. So whenever live class is going on, so be it a special class or a plus class, okay, so there is a question tab that is available where you can type in your question, attach an image, and also you can send it to the educator, so they'll be clearing your doubt as they get a notification. Okay, so now for the top special classes you can visit the link in the description. Okay, so you can find the links there. And Unacademy subscription feature, so main feature, 1 second, I'll connect this one, just a second. Yeah, all right. Okay, so Unacademy subscription features, mainly you can learn live from the comfort of your home, unlimited access to all the courses. So different educators will come up with different courses, so you will have access to all those courses once you take the subscription. So be it a batch, so batch also you will have a look at. Okay, then top educators of India are going to take the classes in one platform, that is Unacademy platform. Regular doubt clearing session will be done, or an answer writing session, that is about after every 3 session. The 4th session which is there, so that is a doubt clearing session. So any doubts you have related to the topics that are previously covered, so you can clear your doubts in this particular session. Okay, then complete syllabus will be covered, mentorship and guidance is given, study material is given, practice test is given, live test series and batch courses. So depending on your preference, you can learn in English or Hindi or English. Okay, so this is completely depending on your preference, like in which language you would like to learn, so you can enroll for those batches. So along with that, there is daily practice section, also weekly mock test series, live quizzes, daily MCQ and subjective test series will also be there. Okay, hi Akshansh, good evening. All right, so now Unacademy's plus subscription pricing. So for class 9 you can try with 6 months, like how exactly this works, so whether you are comfortable or not, so whether you are so depending on your interest and how your study is going on, so you can try with the 6 months of subscription. So those who are entering class 9 now, okay, so they can also go for 12 months of subscription, so if they are comfortable learning. So in that case, complete your class 9 with Unacademy, so that is by 12 months of subscription. So you can see the amount there. Okay, so as you go for higher months of subscription, the cost is getting reduced, and on top of it you will be getting 10% discount on the subscription with the referral code. So this is my referral code, Vani YT. Okay, so with this referral code you will be getting 10% discount. All right, so let's get started then. Yes, what is tissue? Anybody has any idea? So you are in class 9. That's good. So how is the preparation going on? So class 9, those who have entered now, okay. So next phase is class 10 where you will be writing a board exam. So class 9 is like a practice for you all, okay. So what type of a questions that you are going to get in case of board exam. So same pattern will be followed for class 9 also. So it is a practice. So you will have each and every idea about what type of questions. So you can have a look at your Selena exercises also, like it is given a structured questions are given, name the following. So same pattern will be there for your class 10 as well, okay. Yes, so group of cells with a specific function. Hi Sayan Saham, good evening. I think I'm pronouncing your name properly. Okay, so now the tissues when we mention, or what exactly is anatomy. So basically we will be studying the internal structure of a plant. So tissue, when we want to study the tissue, it is not like you will just look at your hand and you say that it is a tissue. So we need to have like what exactly is this, what type of tissue is present on the skin and what type of a tissue is present inside. So each and every detail we will be studying. So now this tissue that I am talking about, so this is related to the plant, okay. So we will be discussing the plant tissue. So mainly the meristematic tissue I am going to explain, and then the simple permanent tissue, okay. So what is anatomy? So internal, yes, so structural study. So that is internal structure we will be studying, okay. So it it can be external structure also, internal structure also. Now when we mention about anatomy, so it is the internal structural study of a plant. So that is the anatomy. So there is one more term called as morphology, okay. So you will come across all these terms. So now when we mention about a morphology, it is external structure that we are studying. Here in this it is the internal one, okay. So now how exactly tissue is formed, what exactly tissue is made up of, any idea? Yes, so appearance. So appearance or the external appearance is morphology. Yes, very good, Akshansh. Yes, so how exactly tissue is formed, how exactly organs are formed, how exactly organ system is formed. So it is not say like it is not the one with which is only restricted only for animals. The plants will also have tissues, the plants will also have their own organs, like branches are there, then there is a root, then there is a stem. So basically a group of cells will be there, okay. Yes, so it is a group of cells which will be forming a tissue. So the group of cells are there. So structurally they are same, functionally also they'll be performing the same function. So structurally and functionally the arrangement of cells or a group of cells which are joined together, and they are in connection with each other, and all of these cells together will be forming a tissue, and that tissue is working for one or the other function. So can you give any example for a tissue, any tissues that in case of plants? So there are tissues, right? So what tissue can you give an example with respect to plant? Yes, any example you can mention for a tissue? So now when we mention about a tissue, like in our case what all tissues are there. So when we compare it with a human, so we have a epithelial tissue, we have a connective tissue, we have a muscular tissue, we have a nervous tissue. In case of plant, many cells. So let's say this is one cell now. So as such many cells will join together, okay. So they will be performing a particular function, okay. So structurally they are similar and they are performing a function. So structurally as well as structural and functional arrangement of a cell will be there, and they are going to perform a function. So now tissue, when we mention, there is a meristematic tissue, okay. So there is meristematic tissue in case, yes, very good. So parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma, yes, we will see that also today, okay. So meristematic tissue is there, okay. So what exactly you might have studied, maybe in class 7 it was there, I'm not so sure, okay. So meristematic tissue, any idea, like at least a little idea about what exactly is meristematic tissue or what it does, any idea related to this one? So meristematic tissue is there. So then there is another tissue. So there is actually a permanent tissue that we mentioned. Okay, so this one is a dividing tissue. So this is the one which undergoes cell division. That is, meristematic tissue is the one that undergoes cell division, and we can see the plant that is growing. Okay, so we can see a plant growth, that is, it is going on growing tall, and also it will go on becoming bigger and bigger. So in that case, there has to be some tissue, right, for cell division. So if a tissue is not there, if a cell is not there, so how is the cell or organism size is going to increase, or a height is going to increase? So for all that, a cell number has to increase. So now if I have to take an example of an infant itself, okay, so let's say this is a toddler. Okay, so this toddler has to grow up. Okay, so cell division will occur. So this toddler, in his body, the cells will go on dividing, and he is increasing in width, he is increasing in height. So cell number is increasing, cell mass is increasing. Now when we mention about a meristematic tissue, the cell number, cell mass, okay, so all that is be increasing in case of plant. So that is mainly with the help of a meristematic tissue, which will perform a function of a cell division. So that means, so these are always actively dividing cells. Actively dividing tissue is meristematic tissue. So there is another set that you will see. Okay, so that is permanent tissue. Okay, so let's have a look at the permanent tissue also. So could you please tell the definition we have to write for tissue in exam? So it is basically a group of cells. So for a tissue, if you have to write, so group of cells which are similar in function, which are similar in structure. Okay, so structurally and functionally. Yes, so you are saying about don't divide is for permanent, you are saying, right, Akansh? Yes, so if it is for permanent, yes, you are right. So permanent, when we mention, so these do not divide. Okay, so there is no division with respect to meristem, with respect to permanent, whereas these go on dividing. So if there is a plant which is going on increasing in height, or it is increasing in cell mass, increasing in cell number, so all that is mainly because of the primary meristem or a secondary meristem. So mainly a meristematic tissue. So I'll tell you what exactly is primary, what exactly is secondary meristem also. Okay, so now this is the classification that we have for a tissue. Just a second. Okay, so there is tissue. Okay, so there are two types that we will mainly find. So there is a meristematic tissue, and then there is a permanent tissue. Okay, so primary meristem is one category. So depending on at which time this particular meristematic tissue is formed, so based on that we classify this as a primary meristem, and this is a secondary meristem. So I'll just explain you that. So let's say this is a tip of a tree. Okay, so this is a tip of a plant. So let's say this is a plant now, plant tip. Okay, so in that case, so earlier whenever a cell division occurs, so earlier set of tissues will be there. So I'll just draw it here. Just a second. All right, so now this is a tip. Okay, so here that cells are there. So these are all cells of meristematic tissue. It is group of cell here, right? So in this case, this is actually formed in the very beginning. Okay, so very beginning, which is actively dividing. So depending on the time at which this particular meristem is formed, so first formed meristem tissue or a meristematic tissue is called as a primary meristem. Okay, so this is a primary meristem. Now why do we call it as a primary meristem? Because this is first formed. Okay, so later on there will be groups as such. So I'll give one particular example. Now you all know that this meristematic tissue is there for cell division, right? Now what will happen? This is one cell which you can see. This is a meristematic tissue. So this will go on dividing, and it will divide and it will form one cell here. So this also divides and one forms one cell. So let's say this divides and it is forming one cell. So all these tissues which are formed on the inner side, So these can be, these can become permanent also. That means the one may not divide. So usually the ones that we find at the tip, so that we call as a apical. Okay, so this is a apical meristem based on where it is present. Okay, so now this is exactly at the tip, so we call it as a apical meristem. So apex is what? It is tip. Okay, so apical meristem is the one. Now these cells will go on dividing, and once it divides, so it is actually the meristem cell itself, or a meristematic cell itself, will divide, and so certain cells will remain as a meristematic cell or a tissue itself, and the one which is formed from it, so those are the ones which will be forming a permanent tissue later on. Okay, so permanent tissue formation, so here you can see that. Okay, so we always say that there is a permanent tissue also, right? So how exactly this permanent tissue is coming, or from where exactly this is coming? So this is only after the meristematic tissue goes on dividing, and a particular set of cells will remain as a meristematic tissue itself, that is mainly having a role in cell division, and certain another cell. So let's say now this is one cell, so this will cells are formed here. Okay, so this will remain as a meristematic tissue, this will become the permanent tissue. So that means this cell is not going to undergo cell division, but this cell will undergo cell division. Are you all understanding what I'm trying to say? So same thing happens here. Yes, Akshansh or maybe Yasmin is here. Here it is dividing now. Okay, so here as this divides, so on this part, so this will go on increasing. So you can see a tip goes on growing, right? So that growth in a tip we can see mainly because these meristematic tissues which are here at the apex, okay, so they will go on dividing, and there is a formation of a apical meristem. Okay, so depending on the one which is formed first, so that we call as the apical meristem. So now here we were drawing the apical meristem. So this you can see, so this is completely a apical meristem. Okay, so now these apical meristems will separate. Okay, so they'll separate. So let's say a set is coming here, a set of apical meristem is coming here. So these we call as a intercalary meristem. Okay, so this is called as a intercalary. So you can see in here. Okay, so there is actually intercalary meristem is there, so that comes under the primary meristem itself. So under the classification of a primary meristem, yes, I'll explain that. Okay, I'll explain it again. Okay, so now under primary meristem, so first let me explain you a particular thing, just a second. Okay, so when we mention, so depending on the time of formation, okay, so when it is formed, so when we do the classification, so we will just concentrate on meristematic tissue now. Okay, so this is now a meristematic tissue. Depending on the time of formation, so we classify the meristematic tissue as primary meristem and a secondary meristem. Okay, so there is a primary meristem which is formed first. Okay, so whenever a formation occurs first, so that we call as a primary meristem. Okay, so now this is whenever a plant growth is occurring, so there is always a single cell will be there. So this single cell itself will go on dividing, and that particular single cell which goes on dividing, it is forming a primary meristem. That is, first this one is formed. Okay, so later on whatever meristem is being formed, so that we call as a secondary meristem. Okay, so later on which is formed, so that is a secondary meristem. So now we are classifying a meristematic tissue. Okay, so that is based on time of formation. So there is a primary meristem which forms first, and secondary meristem forms, so that is which is forming second, or we can just say it is forming next, that is after the first meristem is formed. So now we can also classify the meristematic tissue based on location. Okay, so based on location also we will be classifying this one. Okay, so let's see that. Just a second. So here in this case there is a apical meristem. Okay, so this one is Apical meristem. When do we say apical meristem? So when it is present at the tip, so that we call as a apical meristem. And by the tip and by the sides, we can find a intercalary meristem. Okay, so I'll just draw it and explain. So there is a intercalary meristem formation that we can see. So this is mainly based on, one second. So this is mainly based on where there is a formation of bud. So if you observe a plant, okay, so let's say there is a plant. One second, I'll just draw it and explain. So let's say this is a plant. Okay, so you can see this one here, over here is the apical meristem, because this is the apex now. Okay, so this is actually the apical meristem. Okay, so now here in between you can also find certain cells, that is meristematic tissue, from where either the bud arises or later on it can also give rise to a leaf like this. Okay, so now this can also form a leaf like this. So whenever a leaf or a bud is being formed from the side, so that we call as intercalary meristem. So this is actually apical meristem itself is spreading. So here I'll just draw it here and explain. So now this is a apical meristem. Okay, so this will separate and this will spread. So here one set is there, here one set is there, and again here one set is there. Okay, so now depending on the location when the apical meristem itself is separating and spreading, and these cells over here, so they will give rise to a bud. Okay, so they can also give rise to a leaf as such. So from here also there might be leaf that can come. So that we call as a intercalary meristem. So there is one more type, so that is the lateral meristem. Okay, so you can see in this classification. Okay, so lateral meristem, when we mention, so this is the secondary meristem. So this is formed later on. Okay, so first formed is what? Apical meristem will be there, so that is the primary meristem. So second, later on, the one which is formed, so that we call as a secondary or a lateral meristem. So in primary meristem, first the apical meristem will be there, and that itself will go on spreading, and it is coming down and it is giving rise to a leaf structure or a bud structure. So that we call as the intercalary meristem. So here in this picture you can see this one is the intercalary. So let's draw this one. So now this will continue down here. So there is a formation. So there is a set of lateral. So this green one, the line what I have drawn, so this is giving a lateral meristem which will increase the width of a plant. Okay, so the plant which is growing, the plant can grow this way, the plant can grow to some extent this way also, right? So the width increase that is occurring mainly because of this lateral meristem. So this is formed later on. So these are formed first, which comes under the primary meristem. So under primary meristem what we have? We have a apical meristem. Okay, and also under the primary meristem we have what? So there is a intercalary meristem. Okay, so there is a intercalary meristem also. Okay, so now secondary, so later on this set will be formed. So this is actually a secondary meristem which is also called as a lateral meristem. Yes, is this clear now? So we will just see this one, the parts which are mentioned here. Just a second. Okay, so now so tissues, when we mention, so depending on the time of formation. So now this is the depending on the time of formation. So meristematic tissue we are dividing into primary and a secondary or a lateral meristem. So this is basically based on the time of formation we are classifying a meristematic tissue. Now all these three what you see. Okay, so now this is there. Okay, so now this also comes, and also this part. Okay, so this part I'll just change the color so that you can understand. So now depending on the location, so this also comes under the location. So depending on the location also we can classify a meristematic tissue. So now this is at the apical area. So this is the apical meristem itself is spreading a little bit, and it is forming a bud and a leaf. So that is the intercalary meristem. And later on when the further division occurs, so there is a secondary meristem, it is a lateral lateral. So this is also called as the lateral. That is why it comes under the location also. So now that is so there is basically when we mention about a meristematic tissue, only one type is there, but depending on the time of formation, depending on where exactly this is present, so based on that we are just classifying. But what is the main function of a meristematic tissue? So main function is cell division itself. Okay, so now moving on to permanent tissue. Clear now? Okay, all right, so that's good. All right, so now moving on to the permanent tissue. Now when we mention about a permanent tissue, so these do not divide. Okay, or if there is a requirement, so they can also divide, but usually we say that these do not divide. So it is always the meristematic tissue will look after the cell division, and if anything is required, so it is the meristematic tissue. So only whenever there is a requirement, so certain cells can undergo division, but most of these permanent tissue when we mention, so these do not divide. Okay, so in that we have a simple tissue. Okay, so simple tissue, there are three types in that. Okay, one second. Yeah, so there are three types, so that is parenchyma, sclerenchyma and collenchyma. So these are actually can also be called as a ground tissue. So this is under a simple tissue itself. So there is a ground tissue. Under simple tissue we can also consider one more, that is the epidermal tissue or epidermis. So this is epidermal tissue also comes, which is just like a covering, like we have a covering, right? So covering for all the body parts. So same way like a skin. So epidermis we say, right? So dermis, epidermis is present. So now in case of plant also, whatever the plant is there, so for that covering tissue, what is this? So that is the epidermal tissue, and that is also a simple tissue. So just like a group of cells will be there. So this is the epidermal tissue, group of cells which are performing a function of protection. Okay, so that is the epidermal tissue. Now these are the ground tissues. Okay, so how exactly do we call it as a ground? So they are providing a particular framework, so they are providing a particular functions in case of an plant. Okay, and also they are providing a protection also. So they are making this plant stand in a rigid or a erect way. Okay, so that is because of sclerenchyma and collenchyma. So we will discuss this. Okay, and then there is complex tissue. So complex is simple. What exactly is the definition when we mention for a simple tissue or a complex tissue is? I'll just explain this. So when we mention simple tissue, okay, so all of these simple tissues, so you can see there is a parenchyma, then there is a collenchyma, then there is a sclerenchyma. So all these are made up of only one type of a cell. Okay, so all of these are made of only one. So that is all of them are parenchyma, all of them are sclerenchyma or a collenchyma. Okay, so simple we say because only one type of cell is it. When do we say that the cell is complex? Any idea on this one? So when do we say that the cell is complex? No idea? When do we say that the cell is complex? So you might have, I think it was there in class 9 maybe. Okay, so not class 9, class 8. So you study different tissues there, right? So there you will study about the permanent tissue and the complex tissue. So simple when we mention, yes, very good Akshansh, yes, that's right. Okay, so now when we mention about a complex, it is not just one type of a cell. So many types will be there. So there can be, so now can you give an example for a complex tissue? So there can be many type of cells we can find in case of a complex tissue. Okay, so that means there is a xylem. Yes, like in xylem there are, yes, very good. Okay, so now in case of a xylem, okay, or there is a phloem. Okay, so what all will be there? So there is a xylem parenchyma, there is the tracheids we can find. Now if we are talking about this one, so again phloem parenchyma is there, phloem fiber, that is phloem fiber or a xylem fiber. When we mention, it is basically a sclerenchyma tissue itself. So there is a xylem parenchyma, xylem sclerenchyma. Phloem parenchyma, phloem sclerenchyma. Again in phloem we can also find a companion cell. Okay, so sieve tube is there. So all these are there. So it is not just one type of a cell. So many different cells we can find. So that we call as a complex. Okay, so now when we find only one type of a cell, so that we call as a particular simple tissue or a simple permanent tissue we can mention, and here in this case it is a complex permanent tissue. So let's have a look at this one, the meristematic tissue. So this is, you know, primary meristem is there, secondary or a lateral meristem. Okay, I hope you can see this, the one which is written here. So you know, this is formed in the meaning is that, so this is formed first, and later on, you know, when the development occurs, so we can see, so as the cells go on divide, so you know, in mature region, so let's say this is just a tip now. Okay, so you know, as it goes on developing, as it goes on growing, so there is a development of stem. So this stem which is there, so later on here a lateral meristem can be formed, so which will also help in the increase of this width of a plant. In that case, you know, it is present in the mature region. So this is a mature region, and this part is just a tip, it is still very young, which is still dividing. So here we cannot find much of a division. So division can be found only because of a lateral meristem, that is at the tip region. So there is a apical meristem, there is a intercalary meristem where we can see a leaf growth as well. So that is why this is a early life, this is like, you know, just like a young born baby, so the one who has taken just birth. So it is just like that always, that divide, it will continue to grow, it will, you know, it will make the plant to increase in height. But here in this case there is no much of a division. Who is giving a height then? So it is the apical meristem and the intercalary meristem that is providing a height, that is providing or generating a branches, or maybe we can say a leaf generation, a bud generation can be seen. Okay, so now you know, this is forms primary plant body, so that is the tip, so that is a primary plant body. So forms the secondary structure. So you need whenever you observe a tree or a plant, so below part, so there is actually, you know, the root also if you observe. So let's say this is a root now. Okay, so this tip will be a tender. Okay, so tip is always tender. So this is a secondary structure now. So secondary is in the root only. So this one is not dividing further, so this is tender, that means it will go on increasing the area, you know, it will go on growing, it will go on dividing. So you know, the roots will grow mainly because there is a meristematic tissue that is there in the tip. So this one is a secondary structure which is already divided, which is already, you know, it has become a permanent tissue now. So there we can find a permanent tissue in these areas or in this region of a root. Okay, and you know, here, so let's draw two more roots here. Okay, so tip region will be having a meristematic tissue, and you know, the secondary structure, so this region can have a permanent. So same way with respect to the branching also. Okay, so let's say here in this case, now this is a secondary structure. So let's say here is this tip. Okay, so you know, this one, this plant, so this is still a tender one which goes on dividing. So this is a tip. Okay, but this part what you see, so this is basically, or this part completely, so here this part is a secondary structure which is completely developed. Okay, so in that case forms the secondary structure which is mainly having a permanent type of tissues, but the lateral meristem will be there to some extent. So example, shoot meristem, root meristem, that is shoot tip and you know, root tip. So shoot tip and root tip we can consider. Vascular cambium and a cork cambium. So what exactly is this one? So here you could see that this one is now in the center, we can say cork. Why? Let's say there is a tree. Okay, so now I make a cut into this tree. Okay, so whenever we make a cut, so I'll get a cork slices, right? So what exactly will be there? So it is much more developed. So in that case, xylem and phloem will be there. So it is a permanent tissue. Okay, so for supplying the water from the root, and in the leaf the food synthesis will occur. So for supplying a food from the leaf to the root, so this one, the mainly the vascular cambium or a core cambium, when we mention, you can see in this picture also. So surrounded by many parenchyma cells or a sclerenchyma, collenchyma cells. So there is a vascular cambium. So xylem and phloem also we can find, which can give rise to a basically a transportation, we can say. So transportation can occur. So this one, the secondary, when we mention, it is basically in this developed part of a plant. Okay, so let's have some questions. Let's have a look at some questions. One second. Okay, so what is the small structure, okay, so present on axis of leaf called? So you can see this one here, right? So this structure, so or maybe I'll just change the color here. Okay, just a second. So this structure, what you see, so here you can see this, and here this part you can see here. Okay, so present on the axils of leaf called. Any idea on this one? So here also we can show a bud. So always there is a bud formation. So because of what this is occurring, so leftover shoot meristem cells in the axils of the leaf. Okay, so now this is, let's say this is a plant, okay, or a branching is there, and then there is leaf over here. Okay, so whenever a plant is there, so there are actually the axils. So at the axils, so in this part, so there is still some amount of meristematic tissue that is left, which can give rise to a bud. Okay, not blood, bud. So that is the axillary bud. Okay, so leftover shoot meristem cells in the axils of the leaf can form a branches or a flower. So this can also give rise to a flower. Okay, so I think the video is lagging, right? So maybe the video is lagging, so that is why I am getting the answers late. Okay, yes, very good, Akshansh. It is actually, yes, it is bud. Okay, so yes, moving on to the next one. Let's have a look at the other part. Okay, so did you know that the grasses contain intercalary meristem? Okay, so in case of grasses, if you just cut them, okay, so due to which they can regenerate when grazed by the herbivores. So now cows goes on, the cows or maybe the buffalo, when it eats a grass, okay, so in that case what will happen? So you can see that from this particular structures, what you see, so there is spread over. So this is a primary meristem itself. So from a tip, whatever spreading was seen, so some amount of this intercalary meristem is still remaining. Okay, so that meristem will give rise to a bud, or it can give rise to a leaf. Okay, so whenever a grass has been cut, again there is actually growth. So this is from a plant that they have shown here. So when they feed on this, okay, so there is a growth that we can see. So that growth is mainly because of the intercalary meristem, which can regenerate when grazed by the herbivores. Okay, okay, so yeah, okay, I'll show the question. So it is, one second, maybe my network, I don't know what is the problem. Okay, all right, so shall I move the slide? So this is about the meristems, which are actually giving rise to a leaf or maybe a bud formation can be done when the grazing by herbivores is done. Okay, so now moving on, the simple permanent tissue. So these three, what are there? So all these three are ground tissues, which are mainly present in the root part, or maybe in the stem part, or in leaf also, that is palisade mesophyll when we mention, then there is spongy mesophyll. You will study about that in detail. So these are forming a compound like structure or ground like structure. So they are providing a particular structure to this particular plant. Okay, so parenchyma, when we mention, so it is isodiametric. So if you observe a cell, so this can be hexagonal, or these can be so attached to each other. So this type of cells also we can find, or we can find these type of cells also. So they are isodiametric, throughout their structure. So diameter, if we check from any angle, so that would be same. Okay, so that is isodiametric. Major organ, so this is forming a major component of a plant organ. So all of these plants. So now let's say we are looking at a stem, we are looking at a leaf. So in all of these parts we can find a parenchyma tissue. Okay, so thin walled, made up of a cellulose, there will be a plant cell wall will be there, right? So whenever we are drawing a plant cell, so basically there is a cell wall which is present. Okay, so we can just show two structures also, one is cell membrane and a cell wall. So now this cell wall, what is there? Okay, so that cell wall, usually in case of plant, when we mention cell wall is made up of cellulose. Okay, so cellulose can be there. Okay, and in certain cases there can be hemicellulose also. Okay, so there can be hemicellulose that might be present. So now these parenchyma cells, when we mention, so it's not that they should be round, they should be a hexagonal like or a pentagonal like. So depending on where they are present, so there can be structural variation. So these are spherical, so we can find them oval also. This can be round, so that is spherical itself, polygonal, okay, or elongated in shape. So we can find different shapes in them. Okay, and these are closely packed or small intercellular spaces. So now you can see in this. Okay, so there is a tiny intercellular space that we can see. So this is an intercellular space. Okay, so now let's say I'm drawing a structure here again. Okay, so here one more cell that I'll draw. So these are the cells that we go on drawing. So this is okay. Now in this case also you can see there is intercellular space that is present. Okay, so these are closely packed, and small intercellular space can be found in there. So this is now a intercellular space, here is intercellular space, so we can find the intercellular space also. So what is the main function in this case? The storage, photosynthesis and secretion. So now if a parenchyma cell is there and it is having a chloroplast. Okay, so let's say there is a parenchyma cell. So this is a parenchyma cell now. Okay, which is having a chloroplast. So in that case, what do we call it? Any idea on this one? Yes, so hemicellulose in algae. Yes, very good. So chitin in case of a bacteria. So chitin it is. Okay. Yes, what you said is right. So it is chitin in case of fungi. So that is chitin. Peptidoglycan. Yes, so that is in case of a bacteria. Yes, very good. Okay. So now here in this case, yes, what I was explaining. Yeah, so parenchyma, if it is having a chloroplast, so which is actually performing a photosynthesis. So in that case, we can call that tissue as a chlorenchyma. Okay, so parenchyma having not the collenchyma, chlorenchyma. So parenchyma cell is there and it can perform photosynthesis. So in that case we can call it as a chlorenchyma. Okay, so chlorenchyma is the parenchyma only which is performing a photosynthesis function. Okay, so it can also perform a function of secretion, storage of a food material. So whenever a plant has produced excess amount of food, all that will be, that is glucose, too much of a glucose is there, so that can be stored here in the parenchyma. Now moving on to the collenchyma. Okay, so below the epidermis, that is in patches or homogeneous layers, we can find a collenchyma. Okay, so that is just below the epidermal covering is there, so that is in case of a plant. So in patches we can find, or it is in a layer also, this can be present. So now cells are thickened at the corners by cellulose, pectin, hemicellulose. So let's say this is a cell now. Okay, so here is again a cell. So again there is a cell. So at corners we can see there is a thickening that has occurred. Okay, so now you know these are all corners. So at the corner we can see a thickening. Okay, so why exactly there is a thickening? Because there is a deposition of pectin that has occurred at the corner, or it can be hemicellulose, or you know cellulose can also be deposited. So cell thickened at the corners by the cellulose, pectin, hemicellulose deposition. Okay, so again these cells can also be oval, these can be spherical, polygonal, or may even contain chloroplast. So if they are having a chloroplast, they can also perform a photosynthesis. Okay, so there is no specific name as such. Okay, so now you know there is no intercellular space. Any idea why there is no intercellular space? You can see here whatever intercellular space that would have been there. Okay, so you know what has happened there. So because of the thickening that has formed at the corners, okay, so that space is also covered. Okay, so that is a pectin deposition is there, hemicellulose or a cellulose deposition is there, and because of that you know there is no intercellular space. Okay, so what exactly is the main function of this one? So providing a mechanical support, food assimilation. So let's see. Now you know there is this plant. Okay, and there is a fruit. Okay, so let's say this is a fruit. All right, so there is a fruit which is attached to the stem. Okay, so in that case there is a chance that whenever there is too much wind, okay, so this Calorechyma is there at this junction or at this particular area. Okay, so here the Calorechyma will be there. Okay, so this is a Calorechyma tissue. So whenever there is a too much wind, the fruit usually does not fall. Okay, so if it is too much and you know it has lost its flexibility, only in that case the mango. So let's say let's take a example of a mango tree itself. The mango will fall, the raw mango if we are mentioning, or you know, so in that case you know they are not easily falling, so they keep on oscillating, so they keep on moving. So only when there is too much of a wind, so it will lose its flexibility. So this Calorechyma is present over here, which is providing a mechanical strength or mechanical support. Okay, so this is providing a mechanical support, and also there is a certain flexibility that is provided, and with that flexibility what will happen? So this fruit will not fall easily. Okay, so you know even with the heavy wind, but you know if that is lost, so after the certain capacity is over, so after the flexibility capacity is over, so this can fall, or otherwise this is held correctly in position. So that is mainly because you know Calorechyma is holding on to this one. So it is providing a mechanical support, and also it helps in the food assimilation, that is basically distribution of a food which is done. So that can also be done. So assimilation is done. One second. Okay, so now moving on to the Sclerenchyma. Yes, so it provides a support due to thickening. Yes, that's right. Okay, so now moving on to Sclerenchyma. So this is long and narrow. Okay, so you can see this is long and this is narrow. So this is thick lignified wall with the pith. So let's say here, okay, one second, I'll just erase this part. Okay, so now in this case, you know, a cell is there. Okay, so there is a cell. Okay, or let's say this is a cell now. Okay, so it is basically a Sclerenchyma, or it can also be called as a fiber. Okay, so now you know a lignin deposition will be done. So whenever there is a lignin deposition, you know this living cell will turn dead. Okay, because there is no transportation or there is no communication that is happening within the cell, because this is completely blocked by the deposition of what? By the deposition of a lignin. Okay, so in that case it is long and narrow. It can be because it is dead, it is not having a cytoplasm, so there are no cell organelles to provide a particular structure to the cell. So this can be long and narrow. So thick lignified walls with the pit. So we can see there is a lignin which is deposited at the cell wall also. Okay, and there are pits, so there are holes, so there are pits is nothing but the hole. Okay, so there can be hole. So these are dead cells without the protoplast. What is the meaning of protoplast? So there is no cytoplasm, there is no nucleus, there is no cell membrane as such. Okay, so basically cytoplasm and a nucleus is not there, and that is why it is a dead cell. So what would be the shape then? So usually this is, let's say this is the shape of a cell. Okay, so if cytoplasm and nucleus is not there, so it will become like this, a flat one. So that is why we usually find it long and narrow, and again it is also providing a mechanical support. So sclerenchyma, so there can be sclerid or a fiber, so depending on how it is present. So now they have shown a sclerid here. So pits are like this, which is providing a particular way for moving in and out. Then there is a lumen. Okay, so you can see a lumen there. So thick cell wall is there, so this is a sclerid. So lumen, thick cell wall is there. Okay, so this one is a lumen, here also thick cell wall. So that is about the sclerenchyma. So this also provides a mechanical support. Yes, so lignin is present in the wall. So here completely this one is deposited. So let's say this is a cell wall now. Okay, so there is a primary wall is present, secondary wall is present. So completely lignin deposition will be there. Okay, and anyway the cytoplasm content, the nuclear content is not there. Okay, so all this cell will come together, so it will become long and narrow. Okay, so that is with respect to sclerenchyma. So we are done with today's session. Okay, so before I end, let me just say about the guardians batch. Okay, so this is it is a all subject batch. Today itself this batch is starting, and I am starting a chapter that is introducing biology. Okay, so introducing biology chapter I'm starting in this batch today at 7:45 p.m. So a new batch is starting. So if you are planning to take the subscription, you can use my referral code VANIYT. Okay, so this is my referral code. So with this referral code, so below there will be a section where you can add a referral code. So with this referral code you will get 10% discount on the subscription. So all the subjects are starting. So April 6, so my class is at 7:45 p.m. So you can take the subscription today itself and start attending the classes and prepare well for your class 9. Okay, because in YouTube, or if it is a special class, like whole of a syllabus will not be covered, only a certain percentage of a syllabus will be covered. Okay, so that is why if you are planning to take the subscription, so you can do it today. This is my referral code VANIYT. Okay, so if you are subscribing for ICSE class 9, so you will be getting ICSE subscription for class 10 and ISE subscription class 11 and 12 absolutely free. Okay, so you can go for the subscription today, as we are starting a new batch, that is the guardians batch, and the mode of delivery here is English. Okay, so also we have introduced a community, so never miss on any update from your favorite educator. Get session notes and practice material. Share your feedback directly with the educator via polls. Okay, so check out the link to the educator community below, so you will find the link. Okay, so what is the cost? So okay, so this is this one is for guardians batch. So if you are going for 12 months of subscription, okay, so usually it is 15k. Okay, so this is for 12 months, but if you are, when you use a code, so there there below there will be a apply code will be there. So if you apply a code, so it will become 13,500. Okay, so this would be the cost for 12 months. So with this one, so if you are subscribing for class 9, you will be getting subscription of class 10 and 11 and 12 also. So this is only for 12 month subscription if you are going. Okay, so you can go with the 12 month subscription and use the code VANIYT. So basically you can start attending the classes from today itself, as we are starting a new batch, and my class is at 7:45 p.m. Okay, so I hope it is clear, Akshansh. So all you need to do is download the Unacademy Learner app. I'll just say about that. Okay. So Bucks Bounty. So this is opportunity for all learners to report any inappropriate content in the video. So be the first one to report a particular issue to claim your prize. Report any inappropriate content using the form in the description. Okay. So how you can go about the special classes or how you can take a subscription, I'll just say. So all you need to do is download the Unacademy Learner app and open the app and click on get started. Okay, and then you can enter your mobile number and the OTP, sign up using your email ID. So once you do that, you can select your classes, that is ICSE class 10, ICSE class 9, you can select it. Okay, so you can select the category mainly. So you will you choose this, that is 6 to 12 you will choose. Then you can choose a category there. So you can select 9, 10 or maybe ISC class 11, 12. So depending on what you are studying, so you can choose or add these goals, and then it will ask you a language of preference. So you can go with the English, Hindi or a English. Okay, so once you do that, you can also find some special class links in the description box. So you can click on the link, you can click on notify me, and basically whenever class starts, so just before that 10 minutes before the class starts, you will be getting a notification about the class. Also you can use the code VANIYT to get 10% discount on your subscription, and also you can use the same code VANIYT to unlock the special classes for free. Okay, so this you can do. So there will be option that will be available, so get a subscription. So you can click on that, it will show you amount. So you can go for 12 months of subscription as we are starting a new batch. Okay, so you can use the referral. Yes, thank you Akshansh. Bye bye, take care. Okay, so I'll just end up the class. Okay, so thank you everyone. So you can click on bell icon to get notified. You can also subscribe to our channel, that is Unacademy and ICSE and ISC boards. Like and share the video and download the Unacademy Learner app, and this PDF I can send on my Telegram channel. One second. Okay, so this PDF I can send on my Telegram channel, so that is Vani Kari ICSE class 9 and 10. Okay, so you can join in there. So this is Vani Kari ICSE class 9 and 10. So you can join that Telegram group. Okay, so you can search this and join the Telegram channel, so I can send the PDF there. Okay, so see you all in the next session then. Bye bye everyone, thank you so much.